evening. Hello, everyone, and welcome back tonight. It is late. It's just gone 10 o'clock here in the UK. But nevertheless, I thought I would jump on here and do a breakdown of the track that I performed last week. That I performed in a kind of like Superbooth warm-up before I went out there. Thanks for everyone who's joined me anyway live. Hello, Martin. Always here. Hope you're all right, man. And Andrew as well. Thanks for joining us in a chat. If you join me live, you get to basically ask questions and get involved with the chat a little bit more. So if you're not subscribed to this channel or you haven't hit the bell, then please do, and then you'll get notified when I go live, because I'm very ad hoc when I go live. I have to fit it in around writing music and things like that. Anyway, I've just got back from Superbooth. I'm going to do a video hopefully later this week where I'm going to go through a lot of the modules that I came across that I've really connected with, and we'll chat through those. But tonight, what I'm going to do is go through and break down the kind of voices, the patching, the routing of the track that I performed last week. If you're not familiar with that track, it's in the description below. So you can go and check that out, have a listen to it, and then come back to this. I will be sharing with you all the modular grid, so you'll be able to see my layout of my case as well. So we'll go through that. Hey Fabian, welcome. If you've got any questions, obviously as we go along, do ask. Then I'll be able to answer those things for you. So yeah, let's dive into this then. There's basically the track that I performed. Let me just play a little bit of it, and then you get familiarize yourself with the voices. There's 5 main voices to this, and everything is clocked off a single clock, which I'll show you in a second. So let me play you a little bit just to remind you. So that's a bit of the track that I performed, just to kind of familiarize yourself with. And let me just mute everything so we're not hearing anything. That should be good. Let's stop the hats. Synth is off. Yeah, cool. So that's all good. So everything is running off. If I show you my modular grid page, you'll be able to see everything's running off this clock here, which is the ML2. The reason I use this clock, it's very small. It has 2 outputs on it. It's very tight, but it creates its own Wi-Fi network, and it does Ableton link. So that means that anything that is an Ableton link enabled, such as Ableton on your laptop or the Akai Force, which I'm using, and I'll dig into that as well a little bit. It sends that out and syncs everything. Now, I used to have problems before when I was trying to synchronize computers and modular systems back in the day. It just never worked very well. And now with this tiny little device, everything just syncs really well. It's super tight, and there's no cables involved because it's all done over a wireless network. So yeah, everything runs off that one single clock. Now there's 5 voices in this track, and let's jump into those individually. So if we look at this voice first, So this is kind of like a repetitive lead line kind of thing. What that is what that lead line is basically is the following. So let me just mute this sound so you're not hearing it. There we go. So yeah, what that is basically is you've got the performer. I've got several sequences going on in this, by the way. You've got the performer, which is this module, or is it? There it is. This by Westlicht, I think that's how it's pronounced. Now, I like to use this particular one for making chords because it's really easy to kind of turn this the CV and gate outputs to work in polyphonic modes. And you can you can also use it to kind of route one track into another track and modulate different tracks. So if you're doing chords, you can take one of those notes, so say if you're playing a C, so what's that, C, E, G, and you can take that track that's playing a C and you can use it to modulate the other two tracks and vice versa, and you can end up coming up with some really interesting rhythms from just playing a C. So that's something that I do. Now that is running into, what's it running into? It's running into the cubic chord, which is a great module for playing chords. The reason I like this is because they're all tuned internally, which is great. So it means that I don't need to tune 3 different oscillators to play a chord. Yay! It sounds great. It's got loads of waveforms in there, different banks to play with. So 3 notes go into that from the performer. Then they come out of that. Those then fly into Veils, which is VCA that I'm using by Mutable Instruments. That is opened and closed by Quadra. So the Quadra is basically producing the envelopes. I like to use the Quadra just because it is super snappy, and it's very playable. I'm often just using attack and decay. I don't think I've got any ADSRs, any true ADSRs in here. I'm never really using attack, decay, sustain and release on anything. It's just mainly ARs, and they just nailed it, IntelliGel with the Quadra. I just absolutely love it. So that's being used to open and close it. Now I'm sequencing this from the IntelliGel Steppy, which is here, which hopefully I can get to. There it is. Okay, timed out. Need to just refresh this page. There we go. Steppy, you're all probably familiar with that. 4-track, very small 1U sequencer. It's great for ratcheting and that kind of thing. So that kicks out from one of the outputs into the Quadra, and it kind of round robins, if you like, through through the Steppy and the Shifty. Where's the Shifty? Shifty. I've got too many modules, haven't I? Where is it? Did I even include? There it is. It's over here. So here's the Shifty. So just to say that again, I go out of the performer. It then goes into the Shifty, which round robins, opens up the Quadras on 3 channels, and then opens up the 3 channels of Veils. Now the cool thing about Veils, of course, is you've got these long throw sliders on the front, which makes it very playable. So when I've got this voice playing, I can just bring up any of the 3 notes in the chord that it's playing. So the first note, the second note, the third note. Notice that one's an octave lower. So I can just blend those in and find different combinations of the 3 notes. Nice and simple, really. So that's one of the voices, and that just kind of sits there in the background. You'll notice it's also going through, some effects. I think it's just a micro, Akai Synth's micro DSP. Let me just check the chat, see if we've got any questions or anything at the minute. Andrew did his first modular gig performance on Thursday at EMOM night. I think that was in Brighton, wasn't it? Sorry I didn't make it down to that. That sounds really cool. Well done. It is scary playing live, isn't it, with modular, because so much can go wrong. You've got to think about so many things. Matt, any modules you ordered that I saw? No, I haven't yet, mate. Yeah, I'm just having to think about what modules I want to get, and some of them aren't released anyway. And I'm not one of these people who, as soon as a new module arrives, I've got to get it. Although I did recently with a new Div Kid stereo strip, which I'm using on the output of everything. I'm using it like a low, like a DJ filter, take away the low end and that kind of stuff. So I'll be waiting a little bit more. Cool. Okay, no other questions. So let's have a look at some of the other voices that I've got in here. So the main kind of like bass line in this is being delivered from the 4MS. Peter Brandt has liked the stream. Thank you, Peter. Yeah, if you're watching this, do hit that thumbs up. It does help me. You'll just see it just below where I am, just pointing down here somewhere. There's a little thumbs up. Hit that. That'd be really cool. Let's jump back here. My main sort of favorite bass oscillator, well, the oscillator that I use for creating really dirty bass lines is this. It's the ensemble oscillator. I absolutely love this one because it's very good at very low frequencies. It doesn't break up loads, and you've got all the kind of warping and wave shaping that you can do with it as well. And that dial in the middle, you can play around with the root note, and I'm always playing around with octaves. So I really like that one. I thoroughly recommend, if anyone wants just to get a really good versatile kind of beefy oscillator, that one's a good one to start with. It's got loads of CV inputs as well to kind of really diversify the sound a lot. Now that particular module is being sequenced this time by the Metropolix. So if we jump over back to here, I can show you the Metropolix. You're probably all familiar with this. Again, this is receiving the clock from everywhere else. I've just multed that clock from the ML2. And here, the Metropolix, I'm still getting in my head into this. There's still a lot that I haven't figured out about this. I used to have the Metropolis, and still trying to get my head into the Metropolix because there's just so much it can do. It's got modulation outputs on it that I haven't really used, and it's got more presets and loads of stuff that I haven't really used. So I need to spend a bit of time with that. And often what I do is, if I really want to get into a module, then the next track that I'll start writing, I'll probably start writing it with this, and that will take me down a path of exploration, getting to know the module, and hopefully something creative comes out of it in the meantime. So it's not time wasted. Now that Metropolix is sequencing that 4MS ensemble oscillator. That then, and this is a nifty little trick that I like to do, I like to make things stereo, particularly bass. So a lot of people say don't put your bass in stereo. It's probably true if you're putting stuff to vinyl, I guess, but a lot of my tracks, in fact all my tracks, has probably got stereo bass to some extent. I like the sound of bass sort of working in your ears like this, you know. So one way to do that is I take something like a mono oscillator 4MS ensemble, and I'll run it through something that can make it stereo. In this case, I just run it through one of these small Akai Synth DSPs. One of these takes a mono input, kicks stereo out, and I just put it on like a very small reverb. And what that does, it makes it stereo. It's not true stereo, I don't think. I'm not quite sure. Well, actually, it's taking a mono input and it's probably running it through a stereo algorithm and making it true stereo, I guess. But it works for me. I like it, and it allows me to add a little bit of reverb to the bass as well. Again, a lot of people don't do that. I do. I like it. I just like the way it sort of softens it out a little bit. And when you open up some of the waveform shaping on the low end oscillator, it will kind of add that reverb and movement to the track and a bit of vibe and that kind of thing. Hey Paul, thanks for joining us. Yes, all the usual suspects are here as well. So continuing on that voice, that then goes into the Ruina Vergio. Now I really like this module. Let me just play a little bit. So that's the 4MS ensemble made stereo. So if you've got headphones on right now, you should hear that. You can really play with the octave easily. And the wave shaping on it. Now, like I say, that's running through the Ruina Vergio by Noise Engineering. And the reason I do that is because I use that distortion within that to make it even more brutal if I want. So I can really do that. I can do this to it. Just add that little bit more girth and distortion to it. If you're not familiar with that module, let me just show you it. Here it is. Just turn that down a second. Yeah, so you can get different faceplates for this module, which is really cool, and you can change it into other modules. You can change it into like these weird reverbs and other things. You just flash it using the firmware. It's stereo in and out, and it's got like doom and distortion and drive and all that kind of stuff. So it's a big favorite of mine at the moment for running stuff through. And like I say, it's one of those modules you can get loads out of, because if you don't like to run it as distortion or whatever, you can just flash it and change it into reverb or something like that. So that then goes into, what does that go? Oh yeah, it then goes into filter, the Triple M F by Happy Nerding. Probably one of my favorite stereo filters. I wasn't that keen on it at first because it actually does add a little bit distortion to it, to anything that runs through here, and I realized you have to turn up the resonance just a little bit to disengage that. It kind of works in a Moog filter in a way, I guess, and it's lovely on chords and that kind of thing. So I run this through it, and it allows me to take off some of the top end and just control it a little bit like this. So you can get loads out of it. You can get loads out of a module just by, you know, running it through some filters and some gradual different types of distortion as well. If you just whack too much of distortion on stuff, and I love distortion, but if you whack too much of distortion on straight away, you're just going to square wave stuff and everything just loses dynamic range, and yeah, it can sound too muddy too quickly. So you do have to keep some of that in there and just add sort of gradual amounts of distortion and square things off in different ways. Let's see if there's any other questions here. Do I have the Yuhi Civilization? No, I don't. Looks cool. I know Gaz has got that from Sonic State. I think he's well into that. Martin is asking, how's your progress with the nerd sequencer? Do you have any experience with recording CV and gate into it? MIDI recording seems to be a bit wonky. It works fine for me, and in fact that's a good segue to my other sequencer and my other voice, which is the nerd sequencer. Which the reason I have this is because it works like no other sequencer in my rack. Here it is. XOR electronics, and I met these at Superbooth this weekend, and they were showing me a couple of updates that's coming, which looks really good. This is a brilliant sequencer. You've got six CV outs, 6 trigger outs, and then you got 6 modulation outs. And the modulation can be CV essentially, so you can essentially almost have 12 CV outs in order to play around with 12 oscillators if you wanted to. It's really cool. It's it also does MIDI, polyphonic MIDI, if you get this breakout expander for it. So that's what I've got going on. I've got some polyphonic MIDI going on in this patch, which sounds like this. It's these pads. And what's happening there is I've got MIDI coming out the nerd sequencer. That MIDI then goes to the Bitbox by 10 Music, the Bitbox Micro, which is a great little unit. Where is it? Where are you, Bitbox Micro? There it is. This little boy. This is cool. It's got MIDI in and out. It does sample playback. It basically does kind of clip launching like Ableton does as well. So sometimes I'll record stuff into it on the fly and just find really cool loops. But what I do, I take the MIDI out the nerd sequencer into this. In here I've got polyphonic sample instrument playing, which is made up of loads of multi-samples of something that I've just sampled out of the computer at some point, probably something out of Yuhi Diva or something like that, which is a really awesome soft synth. And that'll be recorded into the Bitbox Micro. That's then playing out of there. It goes into a U Dervish, which is a stereo effects unit. I really like this. I've got a couple of these actually. The reverbs and the delays in them are really cool. I just find that they sit differently in the mix to a lot of other things. That's it there. I've got a couple of those. And I also find that if you distort you can drive the sound into these and they distort really nicely as well. So it goes out of there and then it goes into a wonderful filter, a Freak filter, which is this digital filter, stereo. And you can run it in stereo, you can run it in 2 mono, and it's got a nice drive input on it, and it's got this lovely kind of I use it on this particular algorithm that works like a DJ filter. So you turn the dial to the left and you get rid of the high end, you turn it to the right, you get rid of the low end, and you can play it like this. It then runs through a 2 HP verb, so I can add some extra verb on that, which just softens out the sound a little bit. I've then got another voice. This is the last voice before we get onto the percussion. And by the way, thanks for sticking with me if you're still here. There's a good 22 of you watching this now. Only 8 people have liked it though, so give me a thumbs up if you will, if you like this. Madcat Modular is asking, do I use my Bitbox for drums? Yeah, I do. I use it for that. I use it for polyphonic multi-sample instruments. I use it for one-shots as well. It works really well. If it's got a solid clock, it works really well. Andrew, thanks for the lesson. Catch the rest later. Cheers, Andrew. Thanks for dropping by, mate. Always appreciate your support. So I'm actually using the Bitbox as well. No, I've got some more chords going on, and these other chords are coming from the Disting X, and they sound like this. Really kind of techno-y stabs. Just a bit distorted. the way that they're produced is, again, I'm running a polyphonic, some MIDI chords coming from the Nerd sequencer. That then goes into the Disting X. Now Disting X, I've got the little breakout for that, which allows me to run MIDI into it. So this is the Disting X. If you're not familiar with it, it does loads of other stuff besides just playing polyphonic patches. I really like the sound of it. It's got some really good algorithms in it, and some it's got filters in it, it's got envelopes in it. There's loads that you can do in there. I'm not using it to its full extent. I'm then taking that sound that comes straight out of there, and I am running it into a VCA, and then I think I'm running it into, oh yeah, I'm running it into the U-Burst, which is a Clouds emulation. It's a small version of the Clouds. Again, I wish I could find it. I'm looking. Where is it? If anyone can spot it, let me know. There it is. U-Burst. So this is basically Clouds in a very small form factor, stereo in and out. And I'm running it in a mode where you can use the texture dial as a high pass, low pass filter like a DJ one, the blend for reverb, and I'm really distorting the input a little bit to give it a bit of drive, and then you can kind of get this kind of sound with it. There's the big reverb. And if I use a low pass, I mean a high pass, takes away the low end. Go the other way, take away the high end. And I can just jam with that, I can just play with that. Just bring the bass in with that to give it a bit of context. Now you'll notice that those patterns are not repeating exactly the same each time. One of those patterns is longer than the other one, which allows you to come up with these kind of really interesting rhythms very easily. So it sounds like it's repeating, which it is, but it's not repeating exactly the same every time. They're sort of moving around each other, and I guess it's one of the things that I've gravitated towards, rather than just always having something that's static, repetitive, doing the same thing over and over again. Here we've got things moving in and out with each other. Now I've also got some hi-hats going on, which I'm using from the Moog DFAM. I tend to use the DFAM actually more for white noise generation than anything these days. It makes really great hi-hats, and that combined with the Tip Top Hats 909, when you merge those two together, you can kind of have the white noise of the DFAM with the kind of harshness of the 909, which is a bit more clacky. So if I just put those in, so that's the DFAM, just white noise, sweeping through it with high resonance. And then I've got the 909 hats by Tip Top, more clacky, a bit more static, and when you merge those together, you get the front end from these 909 hats and the kind of white noise sustain from the DFAM. So these are just running into a mixer, just merge them together, and you get something like that. It's just a bit more of an interesting sounding hi-hat. Let's just see if we've got any other questions before I move on a little bit. Have I noticed, Madcap Modular is asking, have I noticed any latency with triggering drum samples with a bitbox? Not really. Again, if it's got a solid clock, mate, it should be good. And don't forget, if you've got MIDI clock going in and a CV clock, it will sometimes flick between the two, or it doesn't know which one to look at. So make sure you're only feeding it one clock, and that might help you just tidy stuff up. Martin Taylor, the Kicane Binobular looks great. It looks really cool. I'm really interested in that with that one. Michael, hello mate. Nice to see you at Superbooth as well. Hope you made it back well. Yeah, if you're watching this, please do hit the thumbs up if you're enjoying this little breakdown. I wasn't sure if this is something you might be interested in or not, but I thought I'd give it a go, and just so you can learn a little bit about the thought processes that I've got going on. Now over in the corner here, I've got the Akai Force. Let me turn the camera a little bit. There it is in the background. Now the Akai, I've sampled some drums into this, which again, the Akai Force is synced over Ableton Link from the ML2, and I've got kick drum in there, clip, I've got some white noise, and I've got some other distorted drum samples. I'm not sure if I'm quite gelling with these yet. I don't think I've got the drums quite right in this track. Remember, I'm still working on this track. This track is not finished. People who subscribe to me on Bandcamp have already got this track, or should have. It should be there in your inbox from the live stream I did last week. I record the audio locally and I master it up, and you can access that right now. But it is going to be going on an album that I'm working on. So I'm not sure these beats are quite right. I think they will change on the final version. But this is what I've got going on at the minute. Put the bass in. Bring in some hats. These hats are a bit more, I don't know, again, a bit more white noisy. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that it's the right beat yet. It's a bit too straight for me. It's a bit too obvious. As soon as I put something too obvious in my music, I'm like, nah, get rid of that. I need it to be a bit more thought-provoking than kind of more expectant in my music. That's something I'm always striving towards. It'll have elements of what you're expecting. So there will be a big kick drum in there on the one, but I don't necessarily want it to repeat like that. So I might have drum tracks that go, on an odd amount of beats instead of just 4 or something like that. So I need to work on that. I need to find where the kick drum needs to go, and I usually do that again by listening to, I don't know, like the bass line. Bam, 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 bam. So it's like, where does the kick drum go within that? Is it where? Doosh, 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 doosh. Is it there, or maybe I'll put it on the offbeat? I don't know. I need to sit with it. What I tend to do, once I've jammed stuff a lot, I tend to put it on, I chuck it on my phone, I'll go for a walk around the park, and I'll listen to it, and it gives me a different perspective to when you listen to it here in the studio. And often I come back and I've suddenly got 10 more ideas that I just want to implement, and that's how I'll just develop the track a little bit more. Let's just see if we've got any other last questions. I've been streaming now for about half an hour. Tonal axis, do you always record your modular tinkering? Yeah, as much as possible I do, and at the minute I'm just pretty much recording everything stereo. I've ordered some more stackables which allow me, I record everything in through the ES9 by Expert Sleepers, which, if you're not familiar with, is where are you? There it is. This is my sound card now. This is my studio sound card. You get 14 inputs and 8 outputs, and they can be CV or audio. You got stereo left and right out, headphone. You can expand it over ADAT. You've got some software so you can route things internally. and it sounds really great. So what I do is I record into input 1 and 2, the stereo mix, and then I will mult out from different parts of my modular into the other inputs. So for example, I might mult stereo bass into inputs 3 and 4. I might take the kick and mult that into input 5, and I'll just take different parts of the voices and just make sure that I'm recording those independently. So I end up recording the stereo mix, and there's many different parts of the track, all the different voices, all at the same time into a DAW, which is synced again over Ableton Link. And then if the stereo mix is lacking maybe a bit of low end, I can just bring up the bass track. I'll just unmute it and I'll have that on its own, and I can just have that raised up in the mix a little bit more. I do very little editing once it's in the computer. That's the whole idea of me doing this, is because I don't want to be playing around with a mouse and a computer when I'm making music. I want to use the computer more as a tape machine, basically. I will just chop some bits out if I obviously make a fluff, and I'm like, I really like this take, but this bit it's just crap. I'll just highlight it, take it out, see if I can crossfade it, and usually it works out. But that's pretty much it. Everything runs through the OTO boom as well, which adds a bit more kind of vibe and gels everything together as well. Let's see what other questions we have. Tim Dale Music. It was also great to meet you at Superbooth. Hello, mate. Thanks for saying hello. Thanks for everyone who came and said hello, by the way. It's really nice. It did mean that getting from one end of the festival to another did take me a day as opposed to 5 minutes, because I just kept stopping, talking to people, but it was ace. So nice one. Crazy flight back with some of the Sonic State crew, the Udo staff, and someone else further back on the plane talking about your Iraq. Hey, happy days. Glad you got back safe anyway. What else? Kanzion, always helpful to write these ideas down. Well, if you talk about the ideas I'm giving you, it's all here. It's on my channel. Please do subscribe, share, like, give it a thumbs up if you're watching this now. Patrick O'Brien, hey, how you doing? Go check out Patrick's tunes. I'm sure you're familiar with him, but he's a dude, and I think many years ago we might have done a live stream together or something. I hope you're well, Patrick. What is my go-to module for kicks? It's a good question. I do have a few. I do have the Mutant. No, I've got the Entity kick drum here. But I'll sometimes use that in combination with the DFAM, and I'll layer stuff up. I'll run it through things like the Dark Matter by Casper and Basil, and just distort stuff up, and then I'll just sample those kind of things. When I had the Pulsar 23 by Soma, I used to sample that a lot. But I'm very particular about my kick drums. As much as there are some really good manufacturers out there who do some wicked kick drum modules, I'm very particular about them. They often sound a little bit too clean, maybe too punchy, and too techno-y. Now, I know I make techno, but I guess my techno's always been a bit sort of dirtier and a bit more soupy and a bit more, I don't know, it's not clean techno. It's not critically clean. It's not one of sort of this techno you see people making where they EQ everything to the nth degree. So I'm very particular about my kick drums, and some of them will come from soft synths. The Akai Force has got a brilliant drum synth in it as well, which can get really dirty, really nasty. So I've been using that as well. So it's a combination of things. I'm yet to find one kick drum module that I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's the one. I am tempted to buy things like something by Electron, maybe Digitact or Machine Drum or something like that, to play around with more kicks and stuff from there. But I always seem to find something. I've got a million samples as well, and I've got a million samples loaded on the SD card for the Bitbox as well. So hopefully that's useful. Yeah, we did do a live stream, didn't we, Patrick? Nice one. Yeah, go check out Patrick's YouTube channel as well. Does a lot of stuff with noise engineering as well. Some great demos in there. Okay, any other questions? Anything else of use that I can take you through? I've taken you through the main voices. I've taken you through the percussion. One thing that I should say in terms of mixing stuff together, I'm using lots of little mixers. Now, I know there's some big mixers out there. I tend to use, I take the modular approach to mixing, and I use a lot of little mixers to combine voices together. So I might use this little mixer, which is 6 input stereo out, and I might have, say, the, I don't know, chords stereo left and right into there, the reverb for the chords going in there, and maybe I'll have run it through some distortion as well, and then I can just kind of fade in and out different effects, clean, dry, distorted, reverbed. I might also use, in fact I do use these a lot, I've got quite a few of these. Where are they? Endorphins. I think I bought about 3 of these little mixers. Where are you? There we go, the cockpit. So what you've got here is stereo out. It's a little mixer, and it's got 4 channels. Those channels can either be mono or stereo. You just change the jump around the back to decide. But what's really cool about this is that it's got sidechain input as well. So you can feed your kick drum into that, or a pulse, and then apply it to each of these channels independently. You just kind of click down on these dials and turn to the right and increase the amount of sidechain on that channel. So it's like having it's like having a VCA on every single channel, I guess, that's being sidechained. So on some occasions I won't have any sidechaining going on, say on channel 2, but I might on channel 3. And all of these then get routed through this bad boy at the minute, which I love, which is this L1 stereo compressor. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal, and it's built like a tank. And then it'll come out of there. It used to then go through this, which is the overseer, to do kind of DJ, take away the low end kind of stuff. But I'm actually using a Div Kid, what's it called, the stereo strip, which I haven't got on here at the moment. I should add that really. Where is it? Let's have a look. Stereo strip. There it is. Let's add that. If there's any room. No, there isn't. But if you're not familiar with the stereo strip, this is the latest offering from Div Kid and Bafako, and it's really cool. The reason I bought it, and it's probably not its intended use, is that it has a low, a mid, and a high frequency dial there, so you can take out the lows, the mids, and highs. Now what I'm doing with it is I've got them all ramped up to the very top to add this kind of layer of distortion, and then I take out the low end from it and a little bit of the mid, and it allows me to do that kind of DJ drops. So I'll show you as an example. So if I've got basically take out some of the low end from the kick drum there, so when you drop it in you get that heavy bass going on. It's not how it was intended to be used, but that's how I am using it. Let's stop everything. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you do like this track, go and watch the original version. It's in the link below description. It'll take you there. Do hit the thumbs up though if you've enjoyed this, if this has been useful for you. If you've not joined me live and you still got questions about what I'm doing, or if I ain't explain things clearly, just put it in the comments and I'll definitely come back to you, that's for sure. Yeah, so I'm going to carry on working on this track a little bit more, try and finish it off shortly, and then start working on a new one. I'm working towards an album. I know I did a release every single month last year, which are on Bandcamp and now all the kind of, you know, Spotify and streaming sites. Although I might start taking them off the streaming sites. I'm not comfortable with them being on there, I don't think. I think I'd prefer them just to be on something like Bandcamp. I'm not comfortable with things being on the streaming sites because of, well, you know, royalties and that kind of thing. So I might be taking them off there soon. Hopefully, anyway, this has been useful for you. Thanks for joining me tonight on this Monday night. It's 11 o'clock. It's nearly bedtime. Thanks again, everyone. And yeah, please do hit that thumbs up and feel free to share this on any of your social networks. And with friends and all that kind of stuff. So I'll sign off. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Look after yourselves, and I'll hopefully see you during the week with the kind of Superbooth overview of some of the cool modules that I came across that have taken my fancy, and we'll have a little chat about those. How's that sound? Nice one. Take care.